You up? It's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek. You might have heard a big sigh there. I just went, took a deep breath. Anyway, we're live. It's Sunday, and it's time for my Sunday news live stream. I've just found a few articles that have caught my eye. I've not read a single one of them. They could all be rubbish. But let's have an intro, and then we will have a look at the news. Right, I'm back. Right, let's get this news up. It's mostly, what is it? I can't remember what I've bloody picked. Some Star Wars, some Star Trek, and something else thrown into the mix. Right, let's have a look. As usual, this is from the direct, this one. As usual, links are in the description down below. And don't forget, while you're at it, like and subscribe, share the videos, drop a comment, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed already. I'm also on Rumble and Spotify and Amazon Music Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And you can find me on the social medias of Facebook, Instagram and Twitter as he leans down for you know what's coming next. Links for those in the description, as are links to my 2 books, Mercury Rapids, a light-hearted sci-fi action adventure about a chap that gets abducted by aliens and all that stuff and the adventures he goes on. And Silent Predator, a short horror novella about genetically engineered big cats that escape or are released from a lab in North Yorkshire. It's all a bit of fun. Right, here we go. First look at 6 Star Wars Rebels characters in live action. And then we get a picture, but we'll just go through them. Right, oh, Pete's sake, there we go. The core group of heroes from Star Wars Rebels has finally made its way into live-action Star Wars projects. For a long time, it seemed that Star Wars had all but forgotten the adventures of the Ghost crew. That should be a capital G. No, the Ghost is the ship that Hera Syndulla was the captain of. Premiering back in 2014, the Disney XD animated series, Star Wars Rebels, excuse me, I can't breathe, was one of the very first projects released under Disney's ownership of Lucasfilm. You know why I can't breathe? You know why I'm holding in burps and stuff because I've just eaten. I always have like my lunch before I do these things. I never learn. Anyway, right, the series saw the Spectres, Is that what they called them? The Spectres? I don't know. Because there were the Ghost and there were the other one, wasn't there? Oh, the Phantom, wasn't it, with the little ship that came out of the Ghost. Did they call them the Spectres? Was that their collective name, the Spectres? I can't actually remember. Anyway, Kanan Jarrus, who were an ex-Jedi, ex-Jedi Padawan. Hera Syndulla, what is ex-Jedi Padawan, or just an ex-Jedi? I can't actually remember that either. Hera Syndulla, who was the captain, Sabine Wren, a Mandalorian, Zeb Orrelios, who were an alien, based on the original concept art for Chewbacca, and Ezra Bridger, who was another, Force-sensitive young man, as well as their chaotic droid Chopper, C110P, something like that one, his number. Anyway, stand against the Empire in the fledgling days of the rebellion. However, despite being one of the earlier Star Wars TV series, the series has remained popular with fans. Now those fans are finally being reunited with the beloved Ghost crew, we put the bloody capital there, as they make the jump to live action. Right, here we go. So, Star Wars Rebel characters in live action. Number 1, Hera Syndulla, and there she is in, you can't see my fat head, she's in Rebels, and here she is in the Ahsoka series, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And does she look like her? I suppose so. Will she sound like her? The beloved green Twi'lek, Hera Syndulla, is considered by some to be one of the finest pilots in the galaxy. Fans will know that whilst Hera was mentioned briefly in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, we just heard it here on like a PA system. General Syndulla, please report to the command centre, or whatever it said, something like that. And we saw the Ghost parked in the background, and we saw Chopper also in the background. So we know they're around in Rogue One. Anyway, she's only now about to make her live-action debut, and we also saw the ghost in the Battle of Scarif. Right, the recently released Ahsoka trailer let fans see the beloved revolutionary appear in live action. Played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Hera is bound to have a pivotal role in the upcoming series as she, Sabine, and Ahsoka team up to find Ezra Bridger. Some are saying, it's girl power again, isn't it? Where's the guys? Like I said, they're sadly lacking these days, aren't they? Never mind. Hera still sports her iconic green leku and piloting goggles, although they seem to have changed slightly, with Hera swapping her white headpiece for a brown leather style and a matching bomber jacket, as we see there. Yes, that's a difference in styles, but, you can't have everything, can you? Here we go, Sabine Wren, and there she is in Rebels, and there she is in the Ahsoka trailer. Not very good pictures they've got from the trailer. I mean, it's in HD on on YouTube. Have you just taken your camera and just clicked images instead of screen grabbing? Bloody hell, the direct. What you're playing at? Right, the artistic Mandalorian Sabine Wren is perhaps one of the most beloved Star Wars characters in recent years. Her story is inspiring to many, the tale of a former Imperial cadet who was once branded a traitor by her own mother, as well as the rest of Mandalore. You know what? I'd forgotten about all that. I had. As fans will know, Sabine was tasked with building weapons intended to destroy Mandalore, although the Empire had Wren believe they were made to help secure peace. She was later taken in by the Ghost crew. We put a bloody capital there. And able to overcome the missteps of her past, with her work now being used as a symbol of hope. Played by Natasha Liu Boditzo, apologies for the pronunciation, Sabine will make her live-action debut in the Ahsoka series. Sabine has one of the largest deviations in visual design, with her iconic armour replaced with a decorated leather jacket, and her hair much longer than it ever was in Star Wars Rebels. Yeah, like I say, she doesn't look very much like her, does she, really? Really? But, whatever. Like I say, when I saw the trailer, I thought, is that supposed to be Sabine Wren? I thought, well, it must be. And it was. But like I say, she doesn't look anything like the one in Rebels. Maybe she will at some point. We will see. We will see what happens. Right, Chopper. There he is. There's Chopper in Rebels, and there's Chopper as we saw him in the Ahsoka trailer. But remember, we'd also saw him in Rogue One. Anyway, C-110P, better known as Chopper, is a C-1 astromech with a huge personality and love for all things danger and destruction. Whilst, I hate that word, he is loyal to the Ghost crew, capital. He has a mischievous streak that has stolen the hearts of not just the Spectres, capital S, but fans across the globe. I wonder if this were, dictated rather than written, unless the author is an idiot, which probably is. Who wrote this? I'm going to look back. So I can chastise them. Alicia Leach. Oh, well, there you go. We're a woman. I'm just kidding. Chopper made a brief live-action debut in Rogue One, as I said, but he will finally get his chance in the spotlight when Ahsoka premieres this summer. In the trailer, fans were able to see Chopper flailing around in the excitement of a space battle, waving his mechanical arms around during a heated space battle. He said space battle twice in one sentence. Where did you learn to write, Alicia? Of course, Chopper's iconic orange colour scheme has remained intact, as the beloved droid is nearly identical to his animated counterpart. Well, this is a droid, isn't it? You don't get that uncanny valley, do you? Right, number 4, Ezra Bridger. There he is in Rebels, and there, obviously, the hologram, which I was said when I reviewed the trailer. I said, oh, is that supposed to be Ezra Bridger? Cool. That's all we got. For many years, Star Wars fans have been asking one thing: where is Ezra Bridger? When they see Ezra Bridger, all I think of is Bridger, and I just think of Sequest DSV. The captain of that was called Captain Bridger, wasn't he? That's what pops in my head straight away. Of course, I'm old. Anyway, from social media hashtags to fan fiction, the whereabouts of this Lothal resident have been a hot topic amongst the fandom. As many will remember, the epic Rebels finale, in which he saved the people of Lothal by leading the Purgils to Thrawn's fleet. That's the space whales that can travel through hyperspace. Only for the creatures to latch themselves and send both Ezra and Thrawn into the unknown regions. That's all should be capitalised. However, Star Wars has not wanted to give anything away. The Ahsoka trailer gave fans a first glimpse of the beloved Jedi, played here by Eman Esfandi. Not much seems to have changed, with Ezra still sporting his white shoulder pads and orange shirt. It's worth noting that this hologram is likely an older one and taken from before the events of the Rebels finale, leaving what Ezra will look like in the Ahsoka series a mystery. Whilst he only appeared in hologram form, it's the upcoming Disney Plus series Clear that will finally answer fans' desperate hopes of just where Ezra has been. Hey? Whatever. Yes, he's wearing similar clothes, isn't he, to his what he's wearing in the series. Cool. I never even realised. Slightly different, but near enough. Number 5, Thrawn. There he is in Rebels with his weird face, and there is from the back. There was an image that somebody had taken, because apparently they saw him in the hall at Star Wars Celebration. Somebody clicked a photo and put it online. Of Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn. Doesn't look very good, got to admit. As was said in a live stream I did, it might have been last Sunday actually, it looks like Blue Data from Star Trek. Anyway, Grand Admiral Thrawn was created by popular author Timothy Zahn back in the 1990s and was first introduced in his seminal Heir to the Empire trilogy, now part of the Star Wars Legends timeline. Like many other characters featured in Star Wars Rebels, Thrawn is due to make the jump to live action, and in a remixed trailer at the Ahsoka panel at last weekend's Star Wars Celebration, fans were treated to a first look at the character. Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced Thrawn in the animated series, I think he's the brother of Mads Mikkelsen, who played Galen Erso in Rogue One, is due to play the Grand Admiral in the upcoming Ahsoka show, and with any luck, I'm going again, it won't be the last appearance of the popular Chiss, capital C, Alicia. Those who were lucky enough to attend the Ahsoka panel have praised Lucasfilm's efforts to capture the Chiss in live-action form, but from the back, it seems the Grand Admiral may still be wearing his Imperial uniform. Yeah, whatever. Right, number 6, Zeb Orrelios. We didn't see him in the Ahsoka trailer, but we did see him in Mandalorian. And there he is. Like I say, pretty much identical to how he appeared in Rebels. Obviously a bit more detailed, but it's cool. Stop using that word. While most of the Rebels cast are due to make their live-action debut in August, one member of the Spectres... This is turning into a bloody English lesson, isn't it? Has already been seen and heard in the medium. To the delight of Star Wars fans across the galaxy, The Mandalorian Chapter 21 episode The Pirate showed Zeb Orrelios hanging out with his fellow New Republic fighters. While it isn't confirmed, I'm not going to say that word again, it isn't confirmed that Zeb will be appearing in Ahsoka, it will be a surprise for the Lasat to not make an appearance and reunite with Ezra, considering that the Ahsoka series has turned into the de facto Rebel sequel, and Zeb and Ezra's growth as friends and even family was a particular highlight of the animated series. To the surprise of many, the design of the character in live action couldn't have gone much better, and his original voice actor Steve Blum reprising his role made it even better. Live action has allowed Star Wars to better convey, stop using the word better over and over, just how old the Lasat is, and the team has been able to capture the species' wide eyes even outside of an animated format. Ahsoka starts on Disney Plus in August 2023. So there we go. So there we've got Zeb and Thrawn from the back, and Ezra, and Chopper, and Sabine. I bet she changes her hair as the series goes on. I bet that ends up getting shorter. We'll see. And Hera, there we go. So I'll say I'm looking forward to the Ahsoka series. It is a bit, girl power, isn't it? It is a bit. But we will see what happens. Right, sticking with Star Wars. Here we go. Star Wars bringing Darth Maul back from the dead was George Lucas's idea. Well, he shouldn't have killed him in the first place, should he? Killed. Anyway, there he is in The Phantom Menace at Ray Park. Despite only appearing in 2 live-action films in George Lucas's Galaxy Far, Far Away drinking game. Tea today, cold tea nearly. Darth Maul, Ray Park, remains one of the most beloved, that's today's word, isn't it? As well as whilst, remains one of the most beloved Star Wars characters. In Star Wars The Phantom Menace, the Sith Warrior's first appearance was voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. Peter Serafinowicz. If you've watched Shaun of the Dead, audio commentary, you know what I'm talking about. And then Sam Witwer took over voicing the role for Maul in Solo, A Star Wars Story. Witwer had already... Great name, isn't it? Witwer. Witwer had already ably voiced a resurrected Maul during Star Wars The Clone Wars from 2012 to 2020, but the animated version of Park's character would never have happened had Lucas not insisted on bringing him back to life. We would be in a story meeting, and Lucas would often say stuff like, "I've got an idea and you're gonna love it," Dave Filoni said during a panel at the 2017 Star Wars celebration via comicbook.com. And I thought, oh, that so seldom lines up. Then he said, "We're bringing Darth Maul back." And I said, "Really? What do you mean, oh, that so seldom lines up?" So Dave Filoni knows better than George Lucas, does he? Ego. As Star Wars fans well know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, sliced Maul in half. The Jedi clearly didn't have the high ground either. And that was thought to be the end for Palpatine's, Ian McDiarmid's, apprentice. But when Filoni worked on Star Wars The Clone Wars, Lucas dropped the daunting task of bringing the dead villain back to the land of the living right into his lap. And there he is in Clone Wars. In Phantom Menace, Darth Maul careens down the reactor shaft on Naboo after his loss against Obi-Wan. But this was hardly the end. George Lucas wanted to resurrect Maul, so Dave Filoni oversaw his return during the Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 4, Episode 21, Brothers. Maul is alive on the planet Lotho Minor and is discovered by his brother Savage Opress, Clancy Brown, the great Clancy Brown, writhing on mechanical spider-like legs, and he was like, he was mental. You're allowed to do that now? I don't know. One of the things I really loved about Phantom Menace was that he was cut in half, and I thought that's so smart because it ends the debate. Not like Boba Fett going into the Sarlacc, Filoni said during the same discussion. At least he was cut in half, horizontally and not vertically. Anyway. And he, Lucas, said, "No, he's coming back." And I said, "Well, how does that work?" And he said, "I don't know, you'll figure it out." In Season 4, Episode 22, Revenge, Mother Talzin, Barbara Goodson, creates new cybernetic legs for her revenge-crazed son. Maul's resurrection created major complications for Obi-Wan, James Arnold Taylor, their highly anticipated rematch, which was, a lot of people loved it, and I didn't, because I thought it were over with too quickly. Anyway, came as Obi-Wan and the Sarge Ventress, Nika Futterman, teamed up against Maul and Opress, but Obi-Wan was forced to retreat. Later, Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia, Angelique Perrin, tried to defeat the Knight brothers, but Opress slayed Gallia. It wasn't until Star Wars Rebels that Maul's thirst for revenge got the better of him. The Jedi ended what began on Naboo, and he finally killed Maul while watching over Luke Skywalker. Like I say, it was a bit anticlimactic. We're over with really quickly, which was disappointing to me. But yeah, so he died in Rebels. Died. But we did see him at the end of Solo, which takes place before Rebels. In case you didn't know. But so it was George Lucas's idea. Cool. Well, you shouldn't have killed him off, should you? You do that, don't you, George? You kill off Boba Fett, don't you? Because you think they're not popular, because you're not really on. You haven't got the pulse of the fandom. You're just doing your own thing. Anyway, let's move on to Star Trek. Actually, no, we won't. We will move on to Dune. because the last 3 stories are all Star Trek ones, so we'll keep all the Star Trek stuff together. Why David Lynch says he died 2 times with his version of Dune. And there's, I forgot his name now. Paul Atreides, played by him from Twin Peaks. It'll come to me. By the way, I love David Lynch's 1984 Dune. I've said this before. I think it's great. I think it's better than the new one by Denis Villeneuve. I think it's better than that. I I like that, the first part of it anyway. I still prefer the 84 version. It's got its problems and its faults, but it's so weird and amazing. I love it. Carl McLachlan. There we go. That's who that is. Just came to me. There we go. Anyway, as a fan, for God's sake, here we go. Will you make your web page a standard format, internet? As a fan of Frank Herbert's sci-fi novel Dune, I've always been perplexed by the hostility. What does that mean? Hostility to David Lynch's 1984 filmed adaptation. Me too. I love it. It is a wildly truncated take on the book, one that makes a couple of key alterations to the text, but I don't go to movies for slavish takes on great novels. I've already had that experience. Yeah, I've read the first Dune book. It's a bit of a slog, to be honest, because it's a big, thick book. But I still love the film. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, Curtis Hanson's L.A. Confidential, and George Stevens' A Place in the Sun, based on Theodore Dreiser's An American Tragedy, are distinctly different from their source material, and thus illuminating and thrilling in exciting new ways. It's akin to listening to the Cowboy Junkies cover of the Velvet Underground Sweet Jane. I have no idea what he's talking about. Who is it? Jeremy Smith. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm hearing a brilliant song for the first time. I don't know they are. I don't know they are. I'm old. While Lynch, while, that's the word, not whilst, while Lynch was able to place his singularly perverse stamp on Herbert's universe, he was unsurprisingly quite fond of the twisted Harkonnens. He had a much grander vision in mind. He did not, however, have final cut over this $40 million production, $150 million adjusted for inflation, which meant he was subject to the meddlesome whims of executive producer Dino De Laurentiis. Well, all of his directors were subject to Dino's meddlesome whims. This is why he's advocated for a director's cut, though he doubts it'll come to fruition. This was only Lynch's 3rd feature, following the 7-year production of the midnight movie classic Eraserhead and the more audience-friendly, critically commercial triumph of The Elephant Man. He'd given himself over to the Hollywood machinery, and he suffered tremendously for it. They're both black and white, by the way. Eraserhead and Elephant Man. I'm not a big fan of either of them, to be honest. They both make me feel a bit icky, Eraserhead's, a weird film, and it's got this background noise all the way through it that kind of makes you feel ill. It does to me, anyway. And Elephant Man were just, super sad, to be honest. Right, where were we? And there's Paul Atreides and him riding a sandworm. His name will come to me as well. He's got a weird name. I can't remember the name of his character. David Lynch played the werewolf in Silver Bullet, didn't he? Anyway, David Lynch was one of the hottest directors in the industry after The Elephant Man. His gorgeously stylised film about the deformed Englishman John Merrick was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. I think his real name was Joseph Merrick, wasn't it, I think? And prompted George Lucas to offer Lynch the opportunity to direct Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Imagine how that had turned out. But then again, it's just directors for hire, isn't it, and stuff like that. Lynch turned him down flat, thank God. He didn't understand why Lucas would want him to play traffic cop on a production that has been pre-visualised without his creative input. Exactly. It's like, the MCU directors, they haven't got any input, really. Not really. It's all worked out beforehand. Directors for the MCU are cast, they're not employed as creative people. Right, Dune was a different beast. Lynch could design the entire world and set the tone for the film. He basically had the run of the store. He just lacked the power to close it. When Dune arrived in theatres in December 1984 at 137 minutes, it was a compromise, stitched-together representation of Lynch's vision. Looking back, the director took responsibility for accepting the gig in the first place. He told Far Out, I started selling out on Dune. Looking back, it's no one's fault but my own. I probably shouldn't have done that picture, but I saw tons and tons of possibilities for things I loved. And this was the structure to do them in. There was so much room to create a world, but I got strong indications from producer Raffaella and executive producer Dino De Laurentiis of what kind of film they expected, and I knew I didn't have final cut. Dune underperformed commercially, grossing just $30 million at the US box office, but Lynch bounced right back with 1986's Blue Velvet. 4 years after that, he would be hailed as a television pioneer for his sui generis evening sudse Twin Peaks. I have no idea what that means. That is obviously, somebody who's been to journalism school and just showing off. But his surrealistic instincts quickly turned off mainstream viewers with the poorly received premiere of prequel film Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me at the 1992 Cannes Film Festival. Lynch's creative impulses were once again being impugned, but this time around Lynch could withstand the critical brickbats. I think this author, Jeremy, has swallowed a thesaurus, hasn't he? And their Sting as is it Fade Routher? Yeah, he's Fade Routher, isn't he? And that's Raban behind there. That's there, and that's the mother. What's the face of the Bene Gesserit? There, Shan. No, it's not Shan Lloyd, is it? Shan. I can't remember her name now. Yeah. Anyway. Right, during an Emmy nomination, Shan Lloyd's a weather person, isn't she, in the UK? Shan Phillips, that's what it is. During an Emmy nomination roundtable in 2017 for the revival series Twin Peaks The Return, David Lynch discussed how Dune and Fire Walk With Me were different types of heartbreaks. With Dune, I sold out on that early on because I didn't have final cut and it was a commercial failure. Stop blaming it. So I died 2 times with that. So he didn't literally die then. I thought it meant he had a heart attack on set or something. With Fire Walk With Me, it didn't go over well at the time, but I loved it, so I only died once for the commercial failure and the reviews and things. But over time, it's changed. So now people have revisited that film and they feel differently about it. Some of us identified Fire Walk With Me as a masterpiece from the jump. I don't think I've seen it. I might have done. I can't actually remember. I'm not a big fan of Twin Peaks, to be honest. I started watching the series and it wasn't for me. Wasn't for me. But I understand why people like it. It's weird. Anyway, and like Lynch, we feel vindicated, but it's sad that Lynch can't cut himself a break on Dune. If you know Frank Herbert's book, Lynch's film makes perfect sense. Also, his invention of the weirding module as a replacement for the martial arts concept of the weirding way is ingenious. Paul Atreides' name is a killing word. His Fremen name, is it Muad'Dib? That's the killing word. Why not literalise that? I also love the blocky look of the Holtzman shield, which values functionality over coolness, and Toto's overwrought electric guitar tinged score is just the right kind of chintzy. I would rather watch Lynch's Dune than Denis Villeneuve's scrupulously faithful 2021 adaptation. So would I. Good for you, Jeremy. I agree with you. Lynch's version is kinky, crazy, and in the end a fascinating rendering of the book. It might not be the film he intended to make, but it is, front to back, David Lynch with a budget he'd never get again. That's my kind of madness. It's amazing. Really good film. Give it a go. And, the special effects are a bit hit and miss. Sometimes they're amazing, like the shields. The shields look cool. They're just animated, Not CG or anything like that, because that didn't exist back then. So they're just like animated shields, but they look amazing. Do to me anyway. It's a cool film. Give it a whirl. Either the theatrical version or there's a super long extended version that Lynch didn't want anything to do with. So that says directed by what's his face? What's the name now? Alan Smithy. So it's directed by Alan Smithy because Lynch wanted his name taken off that, the super extended version. But even though that's worth a look as well, despite the introduction that goes on forever with really badly painted, like concept art that they use for illustration purposes. But anyway, so there you go, Dune. Yes, he died 2 times, but not literally, because it failed. Anyway, commercially. Right, how Star Trek Picard brought back the original voice of the Enterprise D. Spoilers, if you haven't seen this week's Star Trek Picard. Well, you know now. The Enterprise D returned. How? Well, watch it and you'll see. Right, Star Trek fans may have recognised a familiar voice from, where are you going? From Star Trek The Next Generation. Let's move that up a bit. Move that up a bit. There we go. From The Next Generation, back in Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 9, Vox. Star Trek Picard's penultimate episode saw the Star Trek The Next Generation crew boarding the Enterprise D for the first time in decades, as rebuilt at the Fleet Museum by Commodore Geordie LaForge. And I want to know how many people were at that Fleet Museum. All the lights were on. I mean, it's massive. It's like a space dock, which is like huge. How many people were there? Surely it's not just Geordie pottering about with himself, by himself, is there? Anyway, when Jean-Luc Picard spoke to the Enterprise D's computer, a familiar voice came out, that of Majel Barrett. Or is it Majel? I've always said Majel. I don't know. Who voiced the computers of nearly all Starfleet vessels from Star Trek the original series through the 2009 Star Trek movie, recording her final performance just 2 weeks before her death in December 2008. The filmmakers dedicated the movie to Barrett and her late husband, Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. Given Barrett's death, it might be surprising to hear her voice in Star Trek Picard, especially since showrunner Terry Matalas had previously confirmed there will be a new voice for the computer on the USS Titan in Star Trek Picard Season 3. Speaking to Collider, Matalas revealed how and why they restored Barrett's voice along with the Enterprise D. It had to be her, Matalas said, and then he went back and forth as to whether or not we use AI, but at the time we were doing it... What are you talking about? You've like gone away from his quote and like making up your own quote and then got back into it again without telling us where. Where do these people learn to write? I don't know. Anyway, quote, but at the time we were doing it, it wasn't quite there. So we used clips from Star Trek The Next Generation to make it even more authentic. But it had to be her on that ship or else it wasn't right. But she did record... like phonetic phrases that could be used because she knew before she died, she probably knew she wouldn't be around forever, and she wanted to record something that future Star Trek makers could use if they wanted her as the computer voice. But Terry Matalas seemed oblivious to that for some reason. I thought he were a fan. Anyway, Matalas previously obscured the inclusion of Barrett's voice in the season offering time and money as the reason for the change in a tweet responding to a fan. Or I can spend that bringing back a legacy character on screen. Fans may not love to hear this. TV shows actually have a finite amount of time and resources. You can't dial up some subpar deepfake on the website and call it a day. If you're going to do it right. And then it goes where you can watch Star Trek Picard. Everybody knows where you can watch it. There you go. So you basically use clips, a stitched together sound bite, because we didn't hear much of her from the TNG audio. But as I said, she did do phonetic phrases. Like people do for like sat-navs. You get celebrities doing sat-nav voices. They go in and they do all these different words and phrases and stuff, don't they? And it can be used for a sat-nav voice. She did something like that. So there's probably a sat-nav with Majel Barrett's Enterprise computer voice. Right, there we've got a couple of lists now. It's from Screen Rant. 5 reasons why Next Generation was Star Trek's best Enterprise. You mean Enterprise D? Picard's USS Enterprise D featured in all 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation, where it became the best vessel to bear that hallowed name. And there's it's showing the one in All Good Things, the future Enterprise D from that different future. It's actually got 3 nacelles. There's another one that you can't see there. Plus it's got some extra sticky on bits. And a big, massive phaser cannon at the front, because it destroyed some Klingon ships. Right, spoilers for Star Trek Picard Season 3. You've already been spoiled. Episode 8, Surrender. You mean Episode 9, Vox? I don't know, whatever. The USS Enterprise D features in all 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. You've just said that up there. Introduced in the first episode of The Next Generation Encounter at Farpoint, the USS Enterprise D was the flagship of the United Federation of Planets in the mid-24th century, but not at the beginning. It became the flagship later on in the series. I'm sure at the beginning, earlier on, it were another ship. I'm sure it was something like the Yamato or something like that. That was the Federation flagship. But the Enterprise wasn't at the beginning of Next Generation. But it did become at the end, as the series went on. Anyway, the Galaxy-class vessel was a huge leap forward in Starfleet's technological prowess, the jewel in the fleet's crown. Galaxy-class ships would become more commonplace in Starfleet by the time of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but the Enterprise D was something special for quite a while. I don't know, 'cause like I said, we've seen others. We saw the Yamato, we saw some others as well. But anyway. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, commanded the USS Enterprise D for its entire lifespan, meeting countless new species and saving all of humanity on more than one occasion. The Enterprise D was destroyed in Star Trek Generations when it was critically damaged in a fight with the Klingon Duras sisters, destroying the star drive via a warp core breach and forcing the saucer section to make an emergency crash landing on Veridian 3. Force Toja, Veridian. So I just remember that. The saucer section was recovered, but that was the end of the ship's active service. Despite its relatively short lifespan, the USS Enterprise D stands as the most accomplished storied vessel to bear the name Enterprise, and it's my favourite. With the NX-01 a close second. I love the NX-01 as well, but the Enterprise D is cool. My favourite. Anyway, I know that might be heresy to some. A lot of people say, the Enterprise NCC 1701 refit, Constitution refit's the best. And yeah, it is. That is a lovely ship, but it's not my favourite. And it does bring a tear to my eye watching, especially the 4K version of Star Trek the Motion Picture when you see it in space dock and the music and stuff. It's gorgeous, but the Enterprise D is still my favourite. And NX-01 is my second favourite. And the Constitution refit, my third. Right. The USS Enterprise D was primarily an exploratory vessel scouring unexplored regions of space in an effort to learn about spatial phenomena and to meet new species on new worlds. No Starfleet vessel was more accomplished in that regard than the USS Enterprise D, which encountered dozens of new species in its 7 years of service. Oh, sorry, I moved that off screen, didn't I? Sorry, never mind. Captain Picard proved himself to be a gifted diplomat, and the Enterprise D itself always felt more like an open hand of friendship than a fist of aggression. Let me move that down a little bit more. Right, that's the top of my screen, and is now the top of your screen. Right, I've gone the wrong way. Right, where were we? While the USS Enterprise D encountered its share of benevolent new species, it was largely defined by its introduction to 2 particularly malevolent races. In its very first mention, Picard and his crew encountered Q, John Delancey, an omnipotent member of the Q Continuum. I can't speak today, can I? Omnipotent. Who took a special interest in Picard and humanity over the years. Through Q, the Enterprise D would also make a doomed first contact with the relentless cybernetic zombies known as the Borg. And number 4, Enterprise D's radical design. Look at it, it's gorgeous. Let's say I've never been a huge fan of the, lumpy. Oh, you can't see. There we go. Hang on. My mouse is playing up today. What's up with it? The lumpiness cells. They're a bit blippy, aren't they? They're not sleek or anything, but the rest of the ship is gorgeous. There was something of a house style to Starfleet vessels before Star Trek The Next Generation. In Star Trek the original series, all Federation vessels shown on screen were Constitution class, like the original USS Enterprise itself. Although we did, in the original series, we did see... Oh, what did we see now? In Charlie X, but it was in the remastered version. We saw the Antares, didn't we? But I don't think you saw it in the original version, just in the remastered one. But we saw some different ones in the animated series, didn't we? Anyway, where were we? By the time of the original series movies, there were a few newer designs like the USS Excelsior and the USS Reliant. And they were still slightly different takes, on the refitted USS Enterprise of the film franchise. Well, the Excelsior wasn't, was it? That was a totally new design, the Excelsior class. But the Reliant was basically a kit bash, wasn't it, of a Constitution class. The design of the USS Enterprise D was a huge departure from what came before. For one thing, it's several times bigger than the original USS Enterprise, and it features an elongated oval saucer rather than the more traditional round saucer. It takes some getting used to after so many years of Constitution-class riffs, but the Enterprise D is stunningly beautiful from almost every angle. The inside of it, and there's Riker pointing. Look, it's over there, look. And Picard's saying, I can't see it, I'm old. Although, I'm older now than he was in the first season. I think this is second season, isn't it? This is season 2, because Riker's got a beard, but they've got the old style season 1 uniforms. This is season 2. And no Tasha Yar. And Deanna looks bored. I can't see her. Deanna looks bored behind there. Look, he's here there. Look, she's thinking, I don't know what they're looking at. Anyway, where were we? Star Trek, the original series' USS Enterprise was known for its colourful, if somewhat Spartan interior, while modern iterations of the franchise like the Kelvin Timeline movies and Star Trek Discovery have favoured gunmetal grey and dynamic lighting, resulting in bridge sets that sometimes feel more like dance raves than military facilities or Apple stores. The USS Enterprise D eschewed virtually all of that. The Enterprise D's interior is mostly beige and brown. It was the 80s after all. With big cushy chairs and tasteful wood panelling on the ship's bridge. It's the one Star Trek interior ship design that actually looks like somewhere people would happily work and live rather than a poorly lit cellar in space. Star Trek The Next Generation took a special interest in the mental health of its crew, making sure to create warm, welcoming environments, not just for the ship's crew, but for visitors who may feel uneasy on such a massively powerful vessel. Plus, don't forget, there wasn't just the crew, there were the crew's families on board as well. So it wasn't just a starship, a military vessel. It was a community in space. That was the point of it. It was a community in space. They took their families exploring, and quite often putting their families in direct danger. But the less said about that, the better. Here we go. The encounter in the Borg. This is the end of season 3, no doubt. It's not season 2 because the new season 3 uniforms, which were much nicer. Perhaps the most pivotal event in Star Trek The Next Generation occurred in the 2-part episode The Best of Both Worlds. After previously encountering the Borg in the Next Generation Season 2 episode Q Who, the cybernetic collective finally makes its way to Federation space, intent on assimilating Earth. I'm spitting. Captain Picard was eventually captured by the Borg, altered into the Borg spokesperson Locutus as both an intimidation tactic and to utilise Picard's knowledge of Starfleet strategy. With Picard's unwilling help, the Borg decimated a fleet of 40 Federation ships at the Battle of Wolf 359 on its way to Earth, killing, 11,000 people died, didn't they, at Wolf 359. However, Commander William Riker, field promoted to captain and then demoted again afterwards. Commander William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, stages a daring rescue of Picard with Lieutenant Commander Data, Brent Spiner, able to hack into the Borg systems via Picard and stop their march toward Earth. It wouldn't be the last time the Federation faced off against the Borg, but to date, it's arguably the most serious threat Starfleet has ever faced. Oh no, about the Dominion. The Borg never invaded Beta Z or killed billions of people, did they? Not in Federation space, anyway. Right, make it so. While Jean-Luc Picard often spoke fondly of his first command, the rickety USS Stargazer, which is a Constellation class, and would go on. Sorry, I thought my camera had moved. It looked to be at a different angle, but we're fine. And would go on to command the more muscular USS Enterprise E. The ship that defines him as a man and an officer is the USS Enterprise D. Picard made his name as the commanding officer of the Federation's celebrated flagship, pushing forward the Federation's idealism and empathy in significant ways. Many of Picard's most important relationships were formed on the Enterprise D, such as his close friendships with Commander Riker and Dr. Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden, with whom he had a child. It's not surprising that in Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1, The Next Generation, Picard stares lovingly at a painting of the USS Enterprise D that once hung in his ready room, noting that the ship was his favourite. But he did say, though, in the episode Relics, the TNG episode Relics, that he'd do anything to command the Stargazer again, even though he said the Enterprise D, was superior in every way, but he said I would give almost anything to command the Stargazer again. But, they seem to have forgot that, don't they? It's a sweet moment that foreshadows Picard's reunion with his command crew from the USS Enterprise D over that season. Star Trek The Next Generation's USS Enterprise D is among the most iconic vessels in Starfleet history, and against all odds ended up the defining Starfleet vessel with the name Enterprise. Yes, and it's cool, and it's my favourite. My favourite starship is the Enterprise D. As I've said, though, I'm not keen on the warp nacelles. They could have been a bit more sleek, couldn't they? But the rest of the ship is amazing. And that's say I love TNG. And finally, sticking with TNG, another list. 10 greatest Star Trek cliffhanger episodes. And bet you know what that's from. Number 1. We all know that the best cliffhanger in Star Trek was written by Spaceman First Class Protector of Earth, Scourge of Intergalactic Evil, Captain Tom Paris Proton, The End. Mwahaha! What are you talking about? Who wrote this? Jack Keeley. Right. That would be stretching credibility further than the Doctor donning his suit as President of Earth. Oh, excuse me. Nevertheless, the faux suspense of the question mark in Star Trek Voyager's Bride of Chaotica, is that what it's from? Episode I'm not entirely fond of, to be honest. I'm not fond of the Captain Proton episodes in Voyager. I'm not fond of any of the holodeck episodes in Voyager. But never mind. Anyway, Bride of Chaotica does raise an interesting point about the origins of the cliffhanger. Though the use of the dangling conclusion can be found in ancient Greek and early Middle Eastern literature, it is the Victorians who are thought to have popularised the serial leave the reader hanging form via the likes of Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. The first recorded usage of the term cliffhanger itself comes from a 1931 Variety magazine article, the decade in which the Adventures of Captain Proton holo novel is set. Star Trek, if you don't know, Captain Proton, it's like based on like Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, King of the Rocket Men, that sort of stuff. That's what it's based on. Star Trek has given us some the old serials. Anyway, Star Trek has given us some of the greatest, most jaw-dropping reasons to tune in next week, starting all the way back in the original series, two-parter, The Menagerie, and getting a Borg upgrade in The Next Generation. These are moments of anticipation that often punctuated our summers. When the franchise has blessed us with dozens of examples, choosing amongst them is also a difficult and ultimately subjective exercise. One person's great is another's threshold. I love threshold. I hate people that don't like that. Does me head in. Move Along Home. Yeah, it's not great. And Masks. I love Masks as well. That Masks, I think, is Brent Spiner's greatest episode. Never mind this bloody Fistful of Data crap. Masks. Anyway. With that in mind, here are 10 of the best episodes from Star Trek that left us desperately waiting for more. Right. Number 10, what does the fox say? Scorpion, part 1. It started off great, didn't it? It saw 2 cubes and going, we are the Borg, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly they get destroyed by, unknown assailants, and it was amazing. Anyway, the cold opener of Star Trek Voyager's Season 3 finale is an electrifyingly exciting enough at less than 20 seconds. The Borg cut off mid-recruitment speech. Resistance is definitely not futile if you're a member of this then unknown alien race, as they make quick work of 2 cubes, the first time more than one had been seen on screen, moreover. Who could do this to the Borg? Asked Tom Paris later in the episode. Future Boothby impersonators. Yeah. And visitors from fluidic space, species 8472, of course. Yeah, they totally emasculated them, didn't they? Like they often did in Star Trek. They took some great baddies and just ruined them, watered them down. But never mind. Anyway, this is it. Voyager has reached that inevitable stage in its long journey. They must somehow find a way to traverse the collective's home turf. Well, Captain Ransom and his gaggle of reprobates apparently managed to avoid it, but it's probably best not to wonder how. Well, they used them creatures, didn't they? When it becomes clear that going forward is no longer an option, and that heading back would almost certainly mean never seeing Earth again, Captain Janeway strikes a Faustian bargain. A deal with the devil of the 24th century and beyond, the Borg. As the episode draws to a close, and in spite of Chakotay's foxy parable, that's the fox and the scorpion, the scorpion wants to cross a river, and it asks a fox to give it a ride on its back across the river, and the fox says, no, but you'll sting me. He says, if I do that, we'll both die. And then as they're going across, it says, okay, so as the fox is swimming across with the scorpion on its back, the scorpion stings it, and they're both dying and in the water, and the fox says, why did you do that? And the scorpion says, I couldn't help it, it's my nature. And that's what the episode's about. Don't trust the Borg, basically, that's what it's saying. What the bloody hell? Give up, princess, behave yourself. Oh, bloody cat knocking on the window. Freaked me to death. Where were we? Foxy Parable. Janeway is aboard a Borg cube, attempting to negotiate when species 8472 attack. In a move that makes the Xindi look like rank amateurs, several bioships link up and destroy an entire Borg planet. The last we see of Voyager is the ship being dragged away under tractor beam by the Borg cube. Scorpion Part 2 didn't air in the US until over 3 months later, so the summer of 97 probably dragged a little too. A novelty for this episode, almost all the visual effects were created using CGI, the good majority of which still arguably holds up to this day. One notable exception to the all-computer approach was for the shots featuring the dismembered Borg corpses. The stack of deceased drones was in fact rather ingeniously created by cutting up and gluing together a bunch of Playmates Borg action figures. You'll never watch those scenes the same way again. Scorpion very nearly wasn't the Season 3 finale of Voyager, however. Originally, the next cliffhanger on our list was meant to take its spot. Are we going to Year of Hell? We'll see. Yes, it is. Number 9, More Than a Bad Hair Day, Year of Hell, Part 1. Another cool... That's the Season 4 of Voyager, were amazing. Had some great episodes in it. And originally, the whole of Season 4 was supposed to be the Year of Hell, but they ended up cutting it down to 2 episodes. Right, Kes did warn of the Annus Horribilis to come in that Voyager Season 3 before and after the Doctor's hair episode. Don't remember that bit. However, she presumably either forgot to mention, and the Doctor deleted it from his memory files, the exact temporal variance of the Chroniton torpedoes in her report, 1.47 microseconds by the way, or that detail of her encounter with the Krenim was rapidly retconned under the bridge carpet. Oh yes, I think I do remember, yeah. Yeah, so they did kind of foreshadow what were coming. Might have saved 7 and Tuvok a lot of time and injury. In any event, the Season 4 two-parter is undeniably one of Voyager and Star Trek's greatest, but with a cliffhanger to end all cliffhangers. First slated to end Season 3, before it was decided to give Kes the boot and bring 7 of 9 on board, which was sad, because, you know, the actress, Jennifer Lien, kind of went downhill, didn't she? But I hope she's doing well now, but, you know, she's had her problems, hasn't she, since leaving Voyager. Anyway, and bring 7 of 9 on board. The writers also considered making the Year of Hell extend the length of Season 4. That might have made for an exciting watch, but it's probably for the best that an entire season was never technically happened. The climax to Year of Hell Part 1 is as suspenseful as it gets. Voyager has sustained extensive damage due to repeated Krenim attacks. Over half the ship has been destroyed. By the way, in case you don't know, what happens in Year of Hell, the Voyager's crossing a region of space, and it comes across a ship that is like really underpowered. Give up, princess, go away. Sorry, the cat's up at the window. They come across a ship that is like no match for Voyager. They've got a couple of other ships with them who are the major race of this region of space, and they're friendly, and they're in discussions with Voyager, and they're going through their space. Then this Krenim ship appears, and it's seriously underpowered, but then suddenly a weird effect happens. A chronoton wave or something passes over the ships, and the two friendly ships disappear. The Krenim ship transmogrifies into a huge warship, and it's pounding Voyager. And basically that's what happens. Then the Krenim, what used to be the mighty Krenim, I can't remember what they called it, Empire. I know it's not called that. That had been defeated years ago, has come back again because Anarax, a Krenim scientist, is buggering about with time and trying to bring the Krenim Empire back. It's not called the Empire, I can't remember what it's called. Bringing the Empire back. So that's what happens, and Voyager is being constantly pummeled by Krenim warships, and it gets worse and worse. Right, so that's what happens. Right, where were we? The life support is failing, and the vast majority of the crew will simply no longer be able to survive on board. As Captain Janeway puts it to them in an emotional and masterfully delivered speech, asking you to stay would be asking you to die. The last we see over the to be continued is the escape pods being launched as everyone but the senior staff is forced to abandon ship into hostile space. The audience is left wondering whether Voyager will ever recover from the damage, and if we will ever see most of the crew again. Luckily, The Year of Hell 2 Part 2 aired just a week later on 12th of November 1997 in the US, so there wasn't an infernal wait to find out. Yet, obviously, everything sorts itself out. Basically, Janeway crashes Voyager into the Krenim time ship, Anarax's time ship, and it resets the timeline, and everything's hunky-dory. Everything's hunky-dory. Right, it's Annihilation and a Starship Extravaganza, Supernova, Part 1. Which is this one? Oh, it's Prodigy, right. I didn't work out which one this was. Yes, it was, yes. I was looking at that shot and thinking, what the hell am I looking at here? Right, Star Trek Prodigy burst onto our screens with the same energy as a proto jump. I don't like the ship. I don't like the proto star. Sorry. Its first season is unquestionably some of the best Trek we've ever had. No, it ain't. It's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Prodigy, but it's not the best. Along with the return of some fan-favourite legacy luminaries and the introduction of a band of bright new lovable faces, the show, as it reached the zenith of its stellar story arc, gave us a cliffhanger that shines alongside the greats. As Supernova Part 1 opens, the protostar is staring down an armada of Starfleet ships. We're talking Sovereigns, Akiras, Defiant Centaurs. Is any more argument needed for a greatest cliffhanger episode? Owing to some Freaky Friday goings-on in the previous episode, Mindwalk, Admiral Janeway is confined on medical leave to the brig of the Dauntless, unable to warn the bridge not to accept a hail from the protostar and unleash the living hell of the living construct. Oh, and if you didn't tear up even a teeny bit during that scene with the Brenari officer, you're colder than a Vulcan on the northern waste of Andoria. So what happened? Protostar's got a weapon from the future, like 25 years or 50 years in the future or whatever. The living construct, and what it does, it takes over a ship. If you open a hail to a ship and the ship accepts it, the living construct takes over that ship, turns all the lights on it red for some reason, and so the ship becomes evil and opens fire on friendly ships. So that's what happens basically at the end of that episode. All the Starfleet ships start shooting at each other. And that might be one of the ways that the Enterprise E, gets destroyed, maybe. But I don't know. It's not been officially acknowledged. Right. Team Vau Nakat Vengeance, Essentia the Diviner, and Dreadnought manages to beam aboard the Protostar, and after a kick-ass battle with the crew, including that majestic mirth moment, Essentia opens a channel to the fleet, which then begins to fire on itself. By the way, if you've not seen it, you have no idea what I'm talking about, all these characters are. Oh, pardon me. Anyway, the Universal Translator goes offline, and what follows is a beautifully crafted scene in which the young Gwyn must use her linguistic talents to communicate with her friends and convince the Federation's allies to assist. Why would they? As Gwyn herself puts it, because in the infinite of space, everyone needs to know there is a place out there willing to accept us all, no matter how different we think we are. This moment is deeply moving and a testament to the ethos of Trek. The heartfelt plea works. Klingon, Vulcan, Ferengi, and even the Gorn ships answer the call. But the joy of seeing help arrive turns to despair when more and more Starfleet ships, infected by the living construct, start to warp in, only to face destruction. We can't stop the signal, says Gwyn ominously, as phasers and photon torpedoes continue to fire all around. It's annihilation. A truly great and explosive ending to a luminescent episode. Yeah, that's it. We're good with Prodigy towards the end. Really enjoyed it. And we're getting the second season, but I think that's all. But we'll see. It got off to a slow start, but I did end up really enjoying Prodigy. Right. The truth is, I never left you. Tears of the Prophets. Oh, here we go. This is where Jadzia Dax was killed by Gul Dukat. A Par-Wraith inhabiting Gul Dukat. If he's taking his baseball with him, shit's got real. What the heck? I'm going to swear. The final scene of the last episode of Deep Space Nine Season 6 is more meditative than your usual cliffhanger. There have been tragic events on the station, and so Captain Sisko has taken an indefinite leave of absence. As the episode comes to a close, we simply see him cleaning his clams in the alley behind his father's restaurant on Earth. Or is that what he was doing? I always wonder what he was doing. Well, the clams. So I watched him that scrubbing there. I thought, what's he cleaning? I thought, they're not potatoes. I thought, why is he just washing stones? But the clams are the... Right, fair enough. Don't be fooled by the deceptive simplicity of this cliffhanger, however. This is one of Star Trek's most powerful season finales that upended our expectations and radically altered the landscape for our cast of characters. He'll be in a little while, Sisko says to Jake, as we, the audience, were left wondering just how long a while away from the station and Starfleet he would be, or if he'd ever return. Of course, the most shocking and emotional moment in Tears of the Prophets, and a large part of the reason why Sisko left, along with the disappearance of the wormhole and the Bajoran deities, was the brutal death of Jadzia Dax at the hands of Par-Wraith Dukat. As difficult as it was to watch Jadzia summarily dispatched from the show, the real-life reasons behind the departure were all the more painful for actress Terry Farrell. When her contract was up for renewal for Season 7, Farrell wanted to negotiate fewer episode appearances so she could work on other projects. Producers stubbornly refused, and as Farrell revealed in the documentary What We Left Behind, one producer even told her that she really should sign the next contract, because if she weren't there on the set, she'd be at Kmart. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Understandably, this was the last straw for Farrell, and she decided to leave. Along with Sisko, the Season 6 finale also left us in doubt about the future of the Dax symbiont. Fortunately, and salvaging at least something from the Farrell fiasco, neither Dax nor Sisko were gone for long. Season 7 quickly reassured us with its strong first outings, and the new Dax, Ezri, was allowed to get with the crew and fans in her own way. Yes, a cool character, is little Esri Dax. And they did some interesting stories with her. Right, number 6. Guess who's coming to Kronos? Redemption Part 1. Just so long as you like the intricacies of Klingon internal politics, excuse me, and enjoy the odd dalliance with interplanetary diplomacy, Redemption Part 1 is a great cliffhanger to Season 4 of The Next Generation. By the end of the episode, Worf has resigned his Starfleet commission so he can go off to fight alongside Gowron in the burgeoning Klingon Civil War. And that's about it, really. No, of course not. For who is backing the Duras challenge to the leadership of the High Council? The Romulans, led by a surprisingly familiar face. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be... Of course, it was Seal, Tasha Yar's daughter. Even though the character had been teased in voice only before the big reveal, including in the previous episode The Mind's Eye, in which Geordi is turned into a Romulan spy. Poor Geordi, we're always getting having to do other people's dirty work, weren't they? In Generations, the Duras sisters fiddled with his visor so that they could see what he saw, and thusly acquire the Enterprise's shield frequencies, which were just displayed on the screen for everybody to see. Anyway, we were all as shocked to see Denise Crosby / Sealer emerge from the shadows as Captain Picard appeared to be when she popped up again on the Enterprise D-View screen in Part 2. Tasha asked a baffled Picard, well, she does look a lot like her mother. The character of Sealer was largely the brainchild of Crosby, who was inspired by the multiple possibilities afforded by time travel in yesterday's Enterprise. Sealer's plans are thwarted by Data. In yesterday's Enterprise, Tasha Yar appeared back on the Enterprise D bridge because the timeline changed when the Enterprise C came forward in time and wasn't destroyed at Narendra 3, and so the timeline changed and the Federation was losing a war against the Klingons. Enterprise C came back and then to send it back, and Tasha Yar... actually, Guinan said Tasha shouldn't be here. She's supposed to be dead. Somehow Guinan knew. So Tasha Yar went back in time with Enterprise C, and that's how she ended up getting taken prisoner by the Romulans, and then she got a Romulan husband and had a daughter called Sealer. That's how it happened, in a nutshell. Right, Sealer's plans are thwarted by Data in the second part, nicely done, but Crosby reprised the role in Unification Parts 1 and 2 and returned as Natasha Yar in All Good Things. Yes, she did. Not only, therefore, did Redemption skillfully solidify the legacy of what is considered to be another greatest episode and turning point for TNG, it, must avoid the obvious pun, carried on at least some semblance of a story for a promising character who had quite literally been thrown away in Season 1. And even if we'd like to have seen more of Sealer than we ever did, Redemption thoroughly deserves its place on this list. Well, this is it. You don't, back then, well, particularly Berman, I suppose, you don't go to him and say, my character's not doing enough. Give me more to do or I'm leaving. And they say, well, bugger off then. Which is what happened, I think, with... Denise Crosby and Tasha Yar. Her character wasn't given enough to do, she thought. So they killed her off. Right, I hope you brought a good book. Shockwave, Part 1. This is from Enterprise. There's the mystery person from the future. The Season 1 finale of Star Trek Enterprise opens with a dramatic and quite literal rendering of the episode title. Tucker, T'Pol, Archer and Reed are in a shuttle pod descending down to Paragon 2, a planet with dangerously high levels of tetrazine in its atmosphere, requiring a strict protocol to be followed by the Enterprise crew to avoid setting the world on fire and killing all its inhabitants. Health and safety gone mad. Suddenly, a huge explosion rocks the shuttle pod, and the shockwave lays waste to the Paragon colony. Mission cancelled, go home. Fortunately, formerly KIA and wealth of information for a cloud of vapour crewman Daniels. Crewman Daniels in Enterprise was a crewman that was from the future, and he told us all about a temporal Cold War that were going on between different factions from different times, and the Enterprise crew got caught up in it. And Daniels was killed by, I think, Silic. I think Silic killed him, vaporized him. Silic was what they call him now? One of the baddie racers from Enterprise. I forgot what they called him now. That we never saw again in future Star Treks. They call him now. Begins with S. I can't remember. It'll come to me. Anyway, where were we? Suliban. There we go. Suliban. Where were we? Daniels has a sit down in the past with I've forgotten Trip's catchphrase, Captain Archer. What are you saying all these weird things for? To clear up a few things and pass on some handy quantum engineering tips. Enterprise didn't cause the explosion. A faction in the temporal Cold War, namely the Suliban, working for the shadowy humanoid figure did. The writers were considering disclosing the identity of the humanoid figure in the two-parter, but as Brannon Braga noted in Star Trek Communicator issue 139, it just seemed too soon. Well, as we know, it eventually got too late for any such revelations. In a fan film, it turned out to be a Romulan from the future. And it did look a bit Romulan. His silhouette, had that Romulan uniform shape, so maybe that's what they were going to do. Anyway, it's some other Daniels time travel meddling that gives us the shocking final scene as Archer goes to surrender himself to the Suliban, whose cell ships are surrounding Enterprise. Daniels snatches him out of the turbo lift, onto 21st century Earth. Slight hiccough in transporting Archer to the future. Bear with. I don't like this writer's style. Daniels has inadvertently and radically altered the timeline. Earth has been laid waste to long ago. What are you talking about? Has been laid waste long ago. There are no more time portals to get Archer home, and in the 22nd century, the Suliban are targeting Enterprise's warp core as the to-be-continued rolls. The camera zooms out over a city in ruins, and Archer is standing on the edge of a destroyed skyscraper. Can you get more cliffhangery without a cliff? Yeah, it's good. Like I say, I love Enterprise. It's my favourite Star Trek series is Enterprise. That's why I love the NX-01 so much. Right, Hugh, Borg V, the crew data Crosis Law, Descent Part 1. And there's Law. Forget the final reveals or even the entire episode. Descent Part 1 could have ended after about 2 minutes. And still have made this list. With a trio of historic holograms like that, and one most memorably played by himself, I can't talk. Data's end programme on the poker game is almost a cliffhanger in and of itself. We're rubbish. If a Data playing poker with Stephen Hawking, Isaac Newton and Einstein, and it were rubbish. It wasn't great, it were rubbish. Indeed, the conclusion to the opener could also qualify. There's a Borg behind that there door. As was detailed in Captain's logs, the unauthorised complete Trek voyages, various ways to end Season 6 were considered before writers and producers settled on the Data Law Borg cliffhanger. One idea, with the very familiar title of All Good Things without the ellipsis, would have seen the crew of the Enterprise D split apart to different posts upon their return to Earth. Whatever the alternatives, we're glad we got this rip-roaring reunion for the Sons of Soong, who didn't enjoy hearing the more diabolical than usual Data lay out his plans to destroy the Federation by his brother's side. Families that slay together stay together. Descent Part 1 also gave us a fascinating new twist on the Borg, as Hugh's individuality echoed to others in the collective. Once more with feeling. Will you stop doing this stuff, this writer? These bloody little asides. They're a lot more chatty than your regular drones in any case, but just as fearsome with Law as their leader. And whilst, it's fairly obvious that he's being manipulated, we're also left hanging about Data's newfound dark side, and what that means for the fate of Picard, Troy and Geordi. Plus Dr. Crusher utterly bosses it back on the Enterprise. Yes, he takes command of the Enterprise and does an amazing job and destroys the Borg ship. By the way, it's about, in the Season 5 episode Q-Who, I, Borg, they rescue a Borg from a crashed Borg ship, nurse it back to health, give it a name, Hugh, and it gets individuality. So they send it back. They were going to send it back with a computer program to wipe out the Borg, but then they come to the sensors and just think to send Hugh back, and his sense of individuality passes through his Borg on his ship, and that basically, makes all the Borg on that ship, unable to function. And then Law arrives somehow, and he basically acts like a Borg queen and brings them all together. But they're all still individual Borgs, and they even have names. And so he going to use the Borg to destroy the Federation, and he also uses Soong's emotion chip to send a signal to Data to make him act emotionally and evilly, and it's all right. Right, nearly nixing the NX-01 Azati Prime. Now you see that there are a lot of cliffhangers in season 3 of Enterprise. But anyway, Daniels, what are you doing on this list again? I'm feeling one of those time travel migraines coming on. The blood-pumping, heart-pounding, action-filled Season 3 outing of Star Trek Enterprise, Azati Prime, raises more stakes than Kirk chopping wood in the Nexus. As the Xindi arc comes to a head, the ante is upped, not just for Enterprise and its crew, but for everyone living on Earth. In the episode, using information about the construction site of the Xindi weapon they obtained from Degra in a creative pre-holodeck day ruse, the crew of Enterprise arrive at the Azati Prime star system. Captain Archer decides to lead a solo suicide mission aboard the Xindi insectoid shuttle to blow up the weapon, although not before a little debate with Daniels on the Enterprise J in the 26th century. When Archer gets to the launch site, however, the weapon has already been moved. He is captured and interrogated, but does eventually get to try a more diplomatic approach with Degra. The reptilians and insectoids have none of it. If you haven't seen it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Having none of it, though, and 4 of their ships attack Enterprise. The battle is epic. Just about everything that can explode does explode. Buttresses fall, decks decompress, rocks fly about. There's always rocks on Bermuda Starfleet ships. And several unfortunate crew members are ripped out into space as Xindi weapons cut large swathes through the hull. The last thing we see before the screen cuts to black is Enterprise adrift as particle beams continue to rain down, not off a cliff. The ship is left hanging in space. And it looks like the end for the NX-01. Spoiler alert, it wasn't, but the damage Enterprise sustained in this critical cliffhanger would follow it for several episodes and even into Season 4. In Season 3, a race called the Xindi, which is actually, it's not a single species, there's actually 5, there used to be 6, but it's actually 5 Xindi races, primates, arboreals, reptilians, insectoids, and aquatics. There used to be avian ones as well that flew, but they're extinct. They're tricked into thinking Earth is going to destroy their home world by some interdimensional bad guys. So they build a weapon that attacks Earth as a test and kills 7 million people or whatever. Oops. So the Enterprise is dispatched as Earth's, most powerful ship. It's dispatched to where the Xindi, are said to live in the expanse. I forgot what they call it now. No, it's gone. Never mind. To where the Xindi live, so they've got to try and find the Xindi and find out why they're being attacked, and then all this, and the entire Season 3 is about this arc. The Delphic Expanse, the Enterprise exploring the Delphic Expanse and finding out what's going on. And as it says here, the Enterprise, the NX-01 is critically damaged, but Archer, comes to a diplomatic solution with the primates, the arboreals, and the aquatics, and they release him. They send him back to the Enterprise, and they order the reptilians and insectoids to stop fire, to stop destroying Enterprise, so they pull back. So the Enterprise is critically damaged, and the warp core's down and everything, and they're stuck. They're stuck at impulse. So So they have to get another warp core, and then thinking the next episode, which is called Damage, they basically steal the warp core from another ship. You know, they do a heinous thing which they said they'd never do, and they go through it all. You know, the ins and outs of it and the pros and cons, but they've got to do it. They've got to save Earth. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little arc, and yeah, I say I love Enterprise, particularly season 3. Right, we're nearly there. Shades of Grey. Just kidding. It's Chain of Command Part 2, and there's the gruff Captain Jellicoe, who will become Admiral Jellicoe. I think we see him Admiral Jellicoe in Prodigy, I think, and Commander Riker. Remember, Captain Jellicoe became captain of the Enterprise when Picard was sent on his mission to Cardassian space, where he gets captured and tortured. In an Orwellian two-parter of Star Trek The Next Generation that has as many lights as it does a new number of shift rotations, Jellicoe, or does it? Captain Picard is promptly relieved of command of the Enterprise. The Cardassians are up to no good, and he must go on a mission, something about theatre band expertise, with Dr. Crusher and Worf to stop some metagenic madness. Alas, it's all an elaborate ruse to capture Picard, and by the end of Part 1, he's the prisoner of the unilluminated Gulma Dread, the late great David Warner. If the Gull isn't satisfied with the answers he gets, Picard will die. Still, getting to wear those awesome undercover outfits was totally worth it. It's where he tortures him and says that shows him 4 lights, and he says, no, there's 5 lights. Picard says, no, there's 4 lights. He's trying to get him to see 5 lights. Anyway, Chain of Command continues to rank among the greats for several reasons, not least for the tour de force performances from the legendary David Warner and his old colleague Patrick Stewart in the second half, the introduction of Ronnie Cox's no-nonsense, get-it-done Captain Jellicoe. That was his quote, his catchphrase. Picard's, is make it so. Jellicoe's, well, get it done. Was also a masterstroke, in spite of his axiomatically different approach to command than the Keeper of Fish. What are you talking about? Is that what Picard means, Keeper of Fish? I don't know. This writer of this article is doing my head in. We warmed to the character, and it was a delight to see him return in Star Trek Prodigy. Although he was an abrasive captain, he was actually a pretty good captain, but he didn't get on with Riker, and he ended up relieving Riker of his duties. But he got the job done, even though he wasn't, a very nice person. He was a pretty good captain. Anyway, the cliffhanger capture of Captain Picard nearly didn't come to be, however. The episode was split into 2 only for budgetary reasons to save money on the second half, with the Picard Madrid one-on-one scenes. Released, although not filmed before Emissary, Chain of Command also set up aspects of the plot for the fledgling Deep Space Nine, in that, as Admiral Nechayev stated, Cardassian forces had recently been withdrawn from the Bajoran sector. Oh, and at one point in the episode, Crusher, Picard and Worf do actually hang over a cliff. I rest my case. Yeah, they go spelunking. But yeah, it's a good episode. Not one of my favourites, to be honest, because it's a bit grim. It is a bit grim. But, it's worth watching. There are 4 lights. And finally, Where Your Old Man Was, Jack, the best of both worlds, Part 1. And there's the Borg kidnapping and beaming out Picard in episode 1. I mean, could it have been anything else for number 1 than the number one moment? Mr. Worf fire. It's not Hannah Montana, it's the Next Generation Season 3 finale, the cliffhanger that set the benchmark and set it high for every Star Trek cliffhanger that followed. The best of both worlds seems to have achieved something rather unique. Pretty much everyone, even in the cacophonously divided world of the internet, agrees that it's great. Look at reviews online even today, and descriptors like outstanding, game-changing and masterpiece abound. Part 1 and Part 2 also tend to make just about every best of or essential list going. And I've even got it on. There we go. I even got it on Blu-ray. The best of... Where are we? There we go. Best of both worlds. At the camera. Oh, it's there, look. I'm pointing at the wrong camera because I'm stupid. Number 1. There we go. Yeah, cool. I might watch that later now. On Netflix. Anyway, where were we? Look at reviews. Part 1 and Part 2 also tend to make just about every best of or essential list going, and not just the Star Trek ones. Far be it from us to offer any kind of dissenting opinion either. There's a reason it gets all the love. It really is just that good. Oh, excuse me. Let's have another drinky. My tea's properly gone cold now. The Locutus twist and the Riker response. By the way, I always thought Locutus was a stupid name. Until recently, actually, until Star Trek Picard Season 3, I found out what Locutus meant. It's the one who speaks. And I thought, of course, it's where the word elocution comes from, isn't it? I thought it was just a play on John Luke, Locutus. I honestly did. Because I'm stupid. Anyway, the Locutus twist and the Riker response was a defining moment in Star Trek history, written and played to perfection, and left fans in 1990 with one heck of a summer wait for answers. And I always wonder, why was Riker demoted back to commander? Why wouldn't he give it? I know he refused ships, commands, but he was promoted to captain. He had 4 pips and everything in Part 2, but never mind. This cliffhanger episode was so monumental a turning point for the franchise that its after effects continue to reverberate down to the new Next Generation. Only very recently, in a remarkable scene from Star Trek Picard's standout Season 3, Jean-Luc was confronted about his time as Borg figurehead in the presence of his son Jack, no less, by a lovable and clearly traumatised dipshit from Chicago, Captain Liam Shaw, who was at the Battle of Wolf 359 aboard the USS Constance as a young engineer. Picard was not responsible for his actions, but those affected by them are still dealing with the consequences, such as the now 3-decade-plus staying power of the greatest Star Trek cliffhanger. Oh, that's it. That's it. But yes, it is the best. It is the best one. Because it's got everything. It's got super action, and it's got great morals and a great story. And we see the Enterprise D separate the saucer section, and we see what it can do as 2 separate ships. It's cool, and they're hiding the nebula and all that stuff. And they've got the Borg and all that. You can't go wrong. Right. That's it. That was the last story. We ended on a list, as usual. So we will leave it there. Hope you stuck with me. Hour and a half. I've gone. I tell you, lists gobble up the time, don't they? Right, we'll leave it there. So I'm going to go and watch this now, maybe. No, I'm not. I've got to go into the garden. I've just remembered. I forgot about that. I've got to do gardening things, so this will have to wait till later. Never mind. Right, so thanks for watching. Wherever you are, look after each other. And until next time, I'll say they. Hang on. See, I'm totally unprepared again. I meant to get me outro, thing. Right, I'll try that again. Bye.